in the Lord. So even though I'm here in the building alone, I know you're with me. The title of today's sermon is Built on the Rock. And I want to read a passage from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7. It's at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, and I'm going to start in verse 24 and read to verse 27. It's how Jesus closes his Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 24. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Let's pray. Lord, I ask you that you would help us this morning to understand your word, and not only to understand it, but to put it into practice. I ask for your blessing upon everyone out there who's listening this morning, all of our church family who's separated, all of us, Lord, that you would help us to come into your presence even now. Lord, that you would help us to realize that you are with us, that we know and are confident that you're always with us no matter where we are, even when we're separated. And Lord, I ask your blessing upon this message that it might touch hearts and help and encourage those who need it most. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. To help us understand this parable, I want to talk just for a minute and explain some things about the place where Jesus and the Jews lived. Now, Palestine in that area was an area filled with a lot of hills and mountains and then a lot of valleys. And it was subject to a great deal of very violent and sudden rainstorms that would just flood the area with rain. The streams that would run down the mountains into the valleys would suddenly become very full, just overflowing, and it would flood down from the mountains into the valleys, and anything in its way would be swept away. So when Jesus is telling this parable, he's telling it to a group of people who lived in an area that understood violent rainstorms and how powerful the impact could be of them washing away anything in its path. And any house or building that wasn't built on a solid foundation, when those rainstorms came and the mountains were filled and the waters started rushing down the hill, that would just take the building out. So the people very well understood this. And Jesus uses this parable to teach a very, very important truth, because he had just taught a lot of things. He had just explained many, many things in the Sermon on the Mount. And now he says to them, listen to me. If you hear these words of mine and you do them, then you'll be like a wise man. But if you hear these words of mine and you don't do them, you're like a foolish man. The reason is because God doesn't want us to be swept away by the storm. It's not God's desire to destroy us. God doesn't send things in our lives to crush us. God wants us to withstand every storm of life. He wants us to stand firm in Him. And Jesus not only gave teaching, but then He said, and this is how you can stand strong. And this is how all of that teaching can help you withstand any storm, no matter what it is. So he's giving us advice and a warning and telling us you can either be wise or you can be foolish. And I know that we want to be wise. The problem is, if we're not, we might find out that the house that we've built, or more directly, the life we've built for ourselves, won't withstand the storms of life. So this is a very important message because of this time that we're in, when everything is happening, when we're isolated, when things are being closed down, when people are losing their jobs, when all of these things are happening. There's a storm, there's a crisis, and God wants us to stand, and He's telling us how to stand. The houses represent, and among other things, a place of safety, protection, refuge from wild animals, from storms, from any outside danger. A house was a place of protection. And in this parable, Jesus is using the house we build to represent the things in our life that we feel give us safety and protection and security. Now, many things give us a sense of security. The jobs that we have, or our careers, our education, our savings and our investments. We put them in place so that when the future comes, we will be secure. Our lifestyle that's perhaps very healthy, and we eat well and we take care of our bodies, and the hope is that we will be healthy and strong and live a long and healthy life. Even religion and the philosophy of our life, we those things to keep us secure, to keep us able to handle whatever comes in the future. And none of those things are bad. They're all good things. But the problem is, none of those things actually protect us from the storms of life. And they spend a great deal of time making their house beautiful. But they don't understand that the strength of a house isn't in its beauty, it's in its foundation. And a lot of people spend all their time and energy on their jobs and their careers, on their education, on their savings and investments, 1Ks, on their bodies, on exercise, health, diet. But they don't realize those things only help make life more beautiful, but they won't give you strength to weather the storm. None of those things are what enable us to handle a crisis, to withstand the storms of life. They're the beautiful things of life, but that's not where our strength is. Our strength is in the foundation. So what is this foundation? Well, in the scriptures, very often, Jesus is represented as our rock. God in the Old Testament, Jesus in the New, He's our rock. He's our foundation. But in this parable, Jesus isn't so much focusing on the foundation itself as He is on how we build on that foundation. The parable is about what we do or don't do, not so much about the foundation itself. Now, He is our foundation, but in this parable, what did He actually say? He said, "He who hears my words and does them is like the wise man who builds on the rock." The parable is more about how we build on the foundation than it is about the foundation itself. So yes, Jesus is our foundation. Yes, He is the one who we build on. But how we build, that's the important thing this morning. So how do we build on this solid foundation? Well, Jesus said it right here. He who hears my words, and you have to be hearing it. You have to be hearing it, reading it, knowing it, and who does them. So it's by hearing and doing the teachings of Jesus that is actually how we build. And I'm going to make a statement that I hope you understand. By walking in obedience to Christ and keeping His commandments and His teachings, obedience to what He's taught us is the way we build on Christ, on the solid foundation. True spiritual and emotional strength are only found in genuine obedience to Christ. People want to be strong in the midst of security. Nobody wants to be crushed. Nobody wants to be overwhelmed. But the truth is, if you want the strength and the courage that you need to withstand the crisis that we're currently in, or if it gets worse, or any other thing, whether it's war or all the horrible things that might happen, if you want to withstand the storm and get your strength from the rock, your foundation, you have to build on that with obedience. And people would love to think that they can ask God for blessing and ask God for protection and ask God for provision and yet not walk in obedience to what He taught. And the two go hand in hand. And you can't have one without the other. The only way to have a solid foundation is to walk in obedience to the teachings of Christ, which is building on the foundation. Without that foundation, you will fall. Now, let's make this very practical. If you've ever tried to help a friend work out, you'll really relate to what I'm about to say. So imagine, if you will, you're talking to a friend to help them get in shape. So here's the conversation. You say to your friend, "You need to do 45 minutes of cardio a day." And your friend says, "I hear you. You're right. I will." Then you say, "Now listen to me. You need to work each muscle group systematically. You've got to plan it out, and you've got to do it each day. And your friend says, that sounds very smart. I understand, I will. And then you say, now listen, you need to eat a proper diet, a healthy diet, and you need to avoid all kinds of junk food and sugar. And your friend says, oh, that's so true, I will. So right now, your friend has taken all your advice and you've told him you need to do cardio every day. You need to do the muscle groups, each one by itself systematically. You need to eat well and healthy and avoid junk food. And he says, I agree, it's wonderful. Then your friend skips several workouts a week and spends a lot of time watching movies and playing video games, sitting on the couch, eating a lot of junk food. Is your friend going to be healthy and strong and get in shape? Of course not. All the good advice you gave means nothing, even if they agree with it, even if they say, absolutely, that's smart, that's right, I agree. It means nothing if they don't do it. And that's what Jesus said. And James, in chapter 1, verse 22, says the same thing. Listen, be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. If we think listening to Jesus' words and teachings will benefit us, even if we don't do them, we're actually deceiving ourselves. The teachings of Jesus don't help us withstand the storm, won't give us strength, won't enable us to be courageous and strong and trust God if we're not doing them any more than all the right advice in the world about how to work out and how to get healthy and how to get strong will make any difference unless the person actually does it. So what is Jesus referring to in this parable when he says, he who hears my words, my sayings, my teachings? Well, he had just finished the Sermon on the Mount. So I'm going to summarize the things that Jesus taught very quickly, because these are the things that he's telling us we have to do in order to have our house built on the solid foundation, in order to withstand the storm. So first, Jesus teaches that true obedience to the written commandments of God only happens if we first keep them in our hearts and minds and then on the outside. He makes a very, very solid point. If you don't keep the commandments of God from the heart, you're really not keeping them. And you know, we aren't any different. If a wife something from his wife and not her and cares for her, does it really matter? If we ask someone to do something for us and we know they're doing it because they want to get something from us, well, they did what we wanted, so now we'll do what they want. But they don't do it because they genuinely want to, because of the relationship with us, because they love us. It doesn't have any meaning. And Jesus says, summarize the first part of the Sermon on the Mount. Everything you do for God, every commandment you keep, isn't because you have to in order to get to heaven, isn't to deserve something from God, to get God's blessing, isn't an agreement between you and God. I'll obey and you bless me. It's, if this is what makes you happy, Lord, I love you, I want to keep your commandments genuinely. Then he reinforces this by saying even religious actions, if they're not from the right motive and from the heart, mean nothing. Prayer, fasting, charitable deeds, giving to the poor. You can give all your money. You can pray 10 hours a day. You can fast 2 times a week. It means nothing if it's not done with the right motive and not done because you genuinely want to please God. Then Jesus explains that if anything is more important to you than God, anything at all, the thing that you've made more important is the thing you've given your heart to, is the thing that has become your treasure, and in actuality, it has become your idol. Now he's explaining this in detail, and I'm summarizing it. But that's why God said not to make any other idols. Not to make any idol. Go back to the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods beside me. Why? What he's saying, if God is not the thing you cherish and love and want the most, then you... And in actuality, if you don't love God with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength and all your soul, which is the first commandment, if you're genuinely loving God first, because you haven't given Him your whole heart. Giving Him your heart, but most of your heart to something else, no meaning. Then he shows us that the key to understanding how we are to treat other people in the world around us is simply by asking ourselves one question: how do I want to be treated? If I don't want people to treat me, steal from them. If I don't want people to treat me badly, I don't treat them badly. If I don't want people to lie to me, the key to understanding our relationship with the whole world around us is ask yourself, is that how I want them to treat me? Treat with kindness. If you want that, you can't do unto others what you don't do to them. You have to. Me? My wife, let me just turn this up. This is our first time doing a live stream, so bear with us as we try to make things better. I hope you can still hear me. Going back to my last point, Jesus said that there's only two roads, two ways, two destinations. We either choose God's plan for our lives, or we wait for the reward that He's promised us, wait for the eternal inheritance that comes after this life. We either choose that, or we choose the rewards and the good things of this life and forfeit the things that God has prepared for us in eternity. We either choose God now and walk with Him later, or we choose this world now and forfeit being with God later. So he sums it all up by saying you've got a choice. So let me put this together. If we're hearers of the word and doers of the word, not just hearers, we're going to love God more than anything else. We're going to obey God from the heart because we love Him. We're going to treat others well, with kindness, with love, with care, just like we want to be treated. And we're going to choose heaven over earth, eternal life over this short one, God's plans for our lives instead of our own plans. The important question is, are we doing these things? Are you doing these things? We're seeing many houses fall during this crisis. We're seeing people all over the world feeling panicked, full of fear, full of worry. People are desperate. They don't know what's going to happen. They're afraid of the future. They're afraid of next week, of next month. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their security. They're losing their investments of their 401k. Everything is crashing. The stock market is down. The world economy is in crisis. And their houses are falling. Many of these people are very religious. Some of them are even Christians. And they're worried about the future. Are in being strong enough to withstand this or any serious crisis is to have our foundation be Christ and build on that foundation by obeying His teachings and by walking closely with Him and by doing what He says. If we in this life and the good things of this life and the pleasures of this life over the next life and all that God has prepared for us, then our house is going to fall. Then we're not going to have the strength. We're not going to have, there's no base, there's no foundation to base your life on. Because your job isn't going to give you security. Your bank account won't save you. Your job won't protect you. Your health won't protect you. Nothing will guarantee that you will be provided for and safe except God. There is, however, a rock. And I just want to say to everyone who's listening and to all those people who think that religion and Christianity is a crutch, that it's just something that people cling to because they need something to hope in, you're wrong. It's real. God is real. Christ is real. The things that he taught, the Bible, these things are real. And in this time when the things that people put their hope in are falling apart, when the economy and jobs and retirement plans and everything and health are all falling down, I challenge you, turn to God now. Turn to Christ and come to him, because he's not a crutch, he's a foundation. He's not an excuse. He's the rock, and on him you can be sure that you are in God's hands, that he cares for you, and no matter what happens, no matter what you go through, no matter what situation we face, he is with us, he is for us, and he is helping us. And I want to offer you the advice that Jesus gave. If you don't build your house on him, by being obedient to his words, if you don't give him your whole heart, if you don't love your neighbor as yourself, if you don't take the words of Christ and choose the life to come first over this life and the good things to come over the pleasures of this life, if you don't choose God's plans for your life, try to make your security, future secure by your own efforts, then God can't help you. But if you put your trust and faith in God, if you will believe in him, if you will give him your life, he will be with you and he will make you secure. Now, to all the believers out there, to everyone who trusts in God, who are trying to obey him, who are trying to give your heart to him, I just want to say this. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know what next week or next month will be. The situation might fix itself. The situation might be worse. It isn't the situation that bothers me at all. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about seeking God with all my heart during this time. Rather than panicking, rather than being filled with anxiety and worry and fear, I want this to draw my heart deeper to God than it ever has before, because he is our foundation. And without him, we will fall. We have no strength. But in him, we have the strength. So if you're worried, if you're scared, if you're concerned, if you're in any way anxious, I want you to bring that to God. And I want you to say to him, I need your strength. I need your help. I need you to give me the spiritual, emotional, mental strength to withstand this storm. The floodwaters are pouring down out of the mountains. They're beating against my house. I need to stand in you, and I need to be strong and have confidence in him, because God never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He is always with us. And even if he lets us go through this crisis, which right now he is, even if the situation is difficult, and it is, he's with us. And nothing will happen to us that he does not allow. Someone once made the statement, God doesn't cause bad things in our lives, but he allows bad things to happen sometimes. And while that's a difficult statement to hear, it's true. There are times when God will allow us to go through the storm. And sometimes he stands up and says, peace, be still, and the storm is calm. Sometimes our ship is destroyed, like the Apostle Paul, who was shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean and floated on boards and got to the island, then gets bitten by a snake. But he doesn't die. God brought him through the tragedy, through the shipwreck, through the biting of the snake. He kept him safe and used him and continued to walk with Paul as Paul did the things God had planned for him. So sometimes God will deliver us. Sometimes he'll shut the mouths of the lions. Sometimes he'll quench the power of the fire. Sometimes he won't. It shouldn't matter. Whatever he chooses to allow, whatever he allows in our lives, whatever he gives us, we need to do two things. We need to seek him with all of our heart, And we need to be thankful for what He does give us. We need to be thankful for how much He does care for us, how much He loves us. We need to be thankful for all of His blessings. We need to be thankful for the hope we have in eternal salvation. We need to be thankful for God's grace and mercy that has saved us and washed us clean of all our sins and given us eternal life. We can't focus on the situation, but we need to focus on the Lord of heaven and earth, who is in charge of the situation. And no matter what He allows us to go through, no matter what, He's holding our hand. He's right there with us. He's right there to protect us. And when it's all said and done, it's God's will that we want. So I'm going to reread the words of Jesus. He said, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock." And that is what I want us to do. That's obedience. That's not saying, "Lord, save me," and then ignoring everything else He says. You can't live a life of sin. You can't live a life of selfishness. You can't have other thing in your heart that's more important to you than God. You can't keep the commandments because you want to go to heaven. It's got to be from the heart, out of love for God. You can't treat others badly and treat your neighbor cruelly or callously or without love and then say that you're on the rock. The two go hand in hand. Obedience to Christ, putting God first, seeking Him first, loving our neighbors ourselves, everything we do. So this morning, I'm not sure how well you're able to hear me. I'm not sure how well this live is. You would strengthen your church, your body worldwide. Lord, that you would give us not only the strength that we need to withstand this storm, but Lord, that you're with us and that we have nothing to fear. Lord, I pray for the same kind of courage that David had when he faced the bear and the lion and Goliath. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were faced with the furnace and they said, "We don't fear, we will not bow down." Lord, I pray for that courage, that confidence, that faith in our hearts that knows that we are in your hands and that nothing and no one can touch us that you do not allow. And if you allow it, then you will walk with us through it. So Lord, bring comfort to your people. Bring peace in their hearts. Lord, even give them joy that they might not have right now. And help them through this time. Draw them close to you each and every day. As they walk every day, I ask, Lord, that you would just stir their hearts to seek you, to take the extra time they have to draw close to you, to read your word, to pray, to worship, to spend time with you. And Lord, let us be the light. Let us shine brightly as your church and show the world that we have hope and confidence and faith, and that, Lord, we have comfort. We thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your love, and we give you all the praise and all the honor and all the glory in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. God bless you. I will try to keep updating everyone.